Hey folks, Phil Gallagher of Thraben University here. I wanted to do just kind of a quick chat, like mini podcast episode sort of thing. There's been a lot of discussion in the past 24 hours on Twitter about like self-improvement and evaluating yourself as a Magic player. So I just want to give you my perspective as an educator, someone who is always trying to like help people learn, you know, how should you be approaching learning and evaluating yourself and stuff of that nature. So I'm looking for this to be, a quick little thing that you could listen to over your lunch hour. So no fancy special effects or games today or anything like that. Just a handful of pictures from Twitter, and I threw this up as my background because it's pretty and I don't use it enough. All right, so here we go. Let's talk self-improvement. I have five little tips for you. Number one, value learning over valuing your results. I think it's really easy to get caught up in things like number of top 8 finishes, number of Pro Tour finishes, number of trophies you've gotten, and things of that nature. But when you get so focused on your results, you might not be zeroing in on the things that are actually going to make you better. So I fell into this trap for a long time. In my first year of like really being on the grind, on being in competitive Magic, back when Star City Opens paid out to top 64, I think in that year I finished like 65th, 66th, 68th, 69th, 72nd in like 6 continuous events. And I looked at that and I was just devastated. I thought I was just like a trash player, garbage player, thought maybe Death and Taxes was bad, like I should change decks. And I was just totally distraught because I'd been on the wrong side of variance a couple of times, and because, honestly, there were plenty of things that I was doing wrong then that I didn't know because I was so focused on results instead of trying to get better and actively working on improving. A little while later, I finally, cashed my first event and was like, okay, that's off my shoulder. And I looked back and I went, I'm actually doing a lot of things wrong. And I've been so focused on trying to get that cash finish, on trying to get to that next like step up, that I wasn't actually doing the things I should have been to be improving. And I know this is really hard in Magic, where we're always, throwing the stats around. But think about it. Now, I'm not a math person, and I didn't do these numbers ahead of time. But let's say that you're going and playing in a Grand Prix, or whatever they're called now, that has 1,500 people. So, no, that's not where the math button is. So if you are in the top 8 out of 1,500 people, you're in the top, like, 0.5%, right? That's a lot. 0.005 there. 0.005333333333333. You get the idea. So if your goal is to be in the top 0.5%, just think about how crazy that is. Even if you're an amazing player, you do have to have a great run. So instead of setting goals like, I'm going to top 8 this event, set more realistic goals. I'm going to work on playing my best. I'm going to work on identifying the spots where I make a mistake and figure out how I'm going to get better about that. I'm going to get better with my tournament prep. I'm going to make sure like I'm writing out sideboard guides that are appropriate. Figure out what you can do to learn and focus on that self-improvement rather than focusing on the results. If you keep working on making yourself better actively, no matter what it is, results will follow. To make a comparison to my kids at school, a kid might be upset that they got a C on that test. But if their last test was an F, and they're actually slowly trending upwards and they're getting that improvement, you're doing what you need to be doing. Results will come with time, with enough repetition, if you work on this self-improvement. Number 2, and similarly, try not to tie your self-worth to your results. Magic Twitter and like Magic content creators in general are getting much better about talking about the amount of anxiety and depression that goes into being on the grind. Even if you're just doing something like going to every SCG Open or Grand Prix or major event that is within driving distance of you, that grind can become real very quickly. And if you go through a spree of a couple of months where you just hit nothing in a row, it can be really easy to think, I'm garbage, I'm trash, I'm not good enough, I'm doing something wrong, my deck's bad, I need to switch. And it's really easy to cut yourself down as a person, and then you kind of get into this vicious cycle where your nerves, your anxiety start to cause you to play worse. So try to keep a positive outlook even when things aren't great. If you go into things with a better mindset, you're going to do better. And it'll kind of help your mental game in the long run. If you win round one of an event, you might be like, yeah, great, let's do it again. If you lose round one of an event, you can be discouraged. If you lose round two of the event, you might start going, maybe I should drop, maybe I should go home, this wasn't worth my time. And you just fall into this cycle. Treat every round like it's one at a time, just do what you need to do, and don't think of one bad day, or even a bad month, or even a bad year of necessarily meaning that you're not good. Again, value your learning and don't get caught up with the bad results feeding into like your own negativity. A lot of people, myself included, have had plenty of like issues, mental blocks, anxiety, depression problems when it comes to Magic. I was crushed when I just went on that year of just like always being right outside of the bubble. And then I learned to shake it off. And now there have been so many events where like I started out 0-2 and it's just like, okay, we just have to claw through it. And then all of a sudden, you've gone 7-0 for the rest of the day, you've made day 2 of an event, you've cashed the next day. But if you let your attitude defeat you in the first place, you're not giving yourself the outs to improve and to be happier about what you're doing. And frequently I tell people, hey, if you're in a funk, just take a little bit of a break from Magic. If your self-worth is 100% connected to your results, just do something. Play some other game for a little while. Switch decks, switch formats. Do something to get yourself in a better place. And you'll play better. Number 3, and this is kind of why I decided to make this video today. It's partially because I had some other thing that I wanted to record, but this tweet has gone just crazy viral online. So be honest, how do you rank yourself? In your mental game, your technical play, your adaptability, your preparation, your deck selection. So number 3 on my little list here was honestly evaluate your strengths and your weaknesses. And I think this is a really cool exercise to do that. Now, that being said, this is meant to be, at least in the way that I read this is meant to be something that is supposed to cause you to think about what are your strengths and your weaknesses. Where do you need improvement? And I think like that, this is a really useful and cool tool. But tying that back to our last point, don't realize that you have a weakness and then cause that to just like give you more anxiety. Like, oh, I can't do this. I am a failure because of this. I think if you start using the tool in that way, it's very dangerous. Similarly, with all these grades that people are giving themselves, it's totally arbitrary. You can use this scale however you want. I think it's most useful in sort of like the educator context, where you give yourself an A, B, C, D, F in some category. And you don't think about like, I'm going to compare myself to literally all of the best Magic players in the world, and I'm going to like evaluate myself in context to them. I think that's very dangerous and will probably result in you feeling a little bit depressed about your own Magic playing abilities for most of us. So just to like show you the range of how people are responding to this question, I picked a handful of really well-known Magic players, and I just want to like show the difference between how they respond. So first I'm going to start with Autumn, who is a member of the, oh geez, what is it called? The MPL, Magic Premier League, Magic Rivals. All right, the jig is up. I know nothing about anything other than Legacy. Like, we all know that, right? Okay, cool. All right, now that we understand that. So when I look at this person, I see someone who is an incredible Magic player. And I say that from watching basically only their LPL matches, their Legacy Premier matches. And honestly, going into it, I knew pretty much nothing about them other than, what you gather by just being a part of Magic Twitter. And so I didn't expect to be impressed. And then I was blown away by their play all of the time. And you look at this person, who in many ways is on top of the Magic world, and look at how they view themselves. Not the straight A's across the board that many of you might have expected, right? I think their comment is really insightful. The number of people giving themselves A's is surreal to me. Almost all competitive players have so much to work on and improve at. So I think Autumn is looking at this post and going and reading, hey, I have so much room to grow as a player still. And that's where they're going and drawing their evaluations from. Let's contrast this to like how I looked at this. When I looked at this, I just kind of treated it as a much more general thing. What are my areas of strength versus what are my areas of weakness? So I go and I play a pretty good mental game. I'm pretty good at bluffing, I've done so many like file tricks and things of that nature. Like, I know what I'm doing on a mental level. I'm really good at staying calm throughout a long tournament. I'm pretty good at getting reads on people. And I think when I'm playing a deck that I know, I'm a very good, that's still the same thing. I'm a very good technical player. I know my way around a Flicker Wisp. Give me cards that I don't know, like Veil of Summer, and I'll make errors with that all the time. But if I'm playing with, something that I'm comfortable with, I'm a really good player. But that's where my strengths end. My strengths as a player are that I'm really good at the things that I'm good at. I am a great Death and Taxes player. I am a great Prison player, or more generally, a great non-blue player. But I'm not very flexible. I can play any list to a 5-0 finish in a league. But would I be comfortable taking a blue deck to a GP or another major event, assuming we got one that was Legacy? Ooh. No, the answer is I probably wouldn't. And that results in me being less adaptable than many other players. I can identify a shift in the metagame, but if the decks that I'm comfortable bringing to an event are like Death and Taxes, Red Prison, Maverick, Loam, those are decks that often tend to have the same sorts of strengths and weaknesses. So my deck selection and my adaptability kind of tied together are a major weakness for me as a player. Similarly, because I just have thousands and thousands and thousands of games under my belt with the same couple of decks, a lot of times I don't prepare as well for tournaments as I actually should. Now, yes, I'll make a sideboarding guide for myself for that event to make sure I'm good, but a lot of times my preparation looks like just playing Infinite Leagues on Magic Online for the 2 or 3 weeks leading up to an event. These days especially, I'm not doing very much sitting down and actively testing a matchup. When I was newer, a lot of times I'd say, all right, I need to make sure I practice the Death and Taxes versus Grixis Delver matchup this weekend. And I proxy up both decks, get someone else to play, go to town, very specifically go and test those matchups, be asking myself, hey, what boarding configurations are better here or here? Should I change things on the play draw? And now a lot of times I'm just operating on my gut rather than preparing as much as I should. So, does it matter what grades I gave myself here? No. What I think this tool is useful for is thinking about what are your areas of strength and what are your areas of weakness. When giving myself these grades, do I think, oh, I have an A in these categories because I'm better than 99.9% of all Magic players in these categories? No. I'm just treating it as a strength of my own. And I think this tool is really useful as a starting point for that sort of thing. Similarly, I think a really good way to, where'd it go? I had it pulled up. There it is. I think another good way to do the same thing is what Max Dorshin did, where he went and instead of just like giving a number, he said, hey, these are the ways that I fit each one of these categories. And I think this is even more useful than just like assigning yourself a grade. And this kind of leads into the next point that I wanted to make. I think a lot of times, once you recognize what your weaknesses are, you need to do something to improve it. If you're in a classroom and you realize, hey, I have a lot of trouble with vocabulary, you need to sit down and you need to study those things in some way that works for you. So similarly, if you notice that you have a weakness when it comes to magic, you need to work on improving that. So sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's not. So an easy example is I know that for me, deck selection is my biggest weakness as a Legacy player. So what have I done to remedy that? I play a different deck just about every time I stream. So if you looked at the past 100 videos that I did, I might have played 75 different archetypes or something like that. Discounting like the daily death and taxes and things of that nature, because like obviously, you know, I've got a reputation as a Chalice guy. I've got to keep casting those. But I am very actively trying to learn new archetypes, like make sure that I understand, you know, all the intricacies, or at least as many as I can like get through in a playtest session. So does that mean that I'm comfortable enough to bring these things to a GP yet? No. But am I learning my way around brainstorms and ponders better? Yes, absolutely. And this is going to, you know, slowly increase my range. When I started streaming, oh geez, how long ago was it now? 3-ish years ago, maybe? I don't know. I don't keep track of that sort of thing. That just mentally doesn't matter to me. When I started streaming, basically I was a Death and Taxes player. That was just it. That was the only thing that I did. I owned a huge portion of Legacy, and I would play them casually, you know, at the local 3 or 4 round events. But that was it. Now I consider myself pretty fluent in a lot of Legacy decks. Again, mostly still the non-blue stuff, but I've worked at patching up my weaknesses. But do I have other weaknesses that I still haven't improved on? Yes, absolutely. So, for example, one of the biggest things that holds me back as a player is my, how do I say this? My lack of desire to put in work for any other format outside of Legacy. So Legacy is the format that I love. To me, Legacy is Magic. But I know that I would learn a lot if I played other formats, especially Limited, but I just have no desire to do so. And I'm sure that keeps me from gaining some other skills that I could take back to Legacy and learn from it. Probably especially in terms of like combat math, bluff attacks, things of that nature. I could probably learn a lot by doing that. And another big personal weakness for me is that I have a lot of trouble traveling to out-of-town events. You know, there was a time where I was part of like a dedicated crew of grinders, and everything was super easy for me because I could just like get in a car and go. Someone else already had a hotel room booked. You know, all I had to do was pack up the cards, write a deck list, and go. Now, if I want to, you know, go and travel out to a tournament, it's a lot more mental work for me, and honestly, a lot of times that stresses me out. So I haven't gone and played in nearly as many team opens and things of that nature as I had the opportunity to, just because the stress of going and doing a lot of that sometimes got to me. You know, I do a pretty intensive job as a teacher that requires a lot of my mental and emotional energy. So a lot of times the idea of like, all right, I'm going to spend 6 hours in the car after I've worked an 8-hour day to get to a tournament, not get enough sleep, play in the tournament for 2 days, get home at midnight on Sunday, and then go to work again. Honestly, a lot of times that stressed me out, which is why almost all of the Magic playing that I do now is online. And that's a weakness that I haven't really looked to improve on yet. And I recognize this, but I still have major growth to do in that category. All right, so my final random piece of advice for you today is that if you're looking to do self-improvement, start testing in different ways than what you're doing now. If you're only playing one deck, work on expanding your range. Learn more about the format. If you're a specialist, play both sides of the matchup. Like, give your friend your deck, and you play the deck that they normally play. Learning how the matchup works from both sides gives you a way better feel about what the critical cards in the matchups are going to be, how specifically you need to pick your fights, down to the nitty-gritty detail of like, what are the optimal ways to order my cards, how do I punish my opponents for it, and things of that nature. If you're looking to improve, playing out both sides of the matchup, playing more decks, just getting more experience in different ways is really going to help you out in those sorts of situations. Nothing that I've said here today probably is new or all that surprising, right? So like recapping, value learning over valuing your results. Don't tie your self-worth to said results. Work on honestly evaluating your own strength and weaknesses, and once you've done that, work on patching up the weaknesses that you can if you're looking to improve. And finally, when you're in that process and like you're ready to actually do some concrete things that are going to help you out, work on improving your playtesting process. You know, are you writing sideboard guides? If not, maybe it's time. Are you playing both sides of the matchup? If not, give that a try. Are you pigeonholed into one deck for every event? Maybe work on expanding your range a little bit. There's a lot of things you can do as a player that will put you into a better mindset and set you up more for success. And that's something I'm always telling my students, is try to set yourself up for success. You know, work smarter, not harder. You know, slow and steady progress over time does more than cramming for a single weekend. So that's kind of just what I had to say. I know this isn't the most exciting video in terms of like effects and all of that stuff, but I hope it's what some of you maybe needed to hear. And if you like this sort of thing and you would want like more little mini lessons like this, let me know in the comments down below. Or if you hated this, like, please let me know that I wasted my time. Like, either way, that's really useful feedback for me. See, we're looping back to the theme of the video, right? Look for that self-improvement and like get people to evaluate what is and isn't working. All right, cheers, folks. Have a great rest of the day.